The other day, I explained the model of sustainable economic development based on genuine saving, and I illustrated it with different triangular charts of the productive structure. In contrast, I explained the model of artificial credit expansion based on growth in the money supply. Although this second model initially seems to have the same effects, the fact that it rests on money creation and not on real saving means that sooner or later, 6 effects appear and reverse the process, giving rise first to a financial crisis and later to an economic recession. So, now please open your books to page 397 of the English edition of Money, Bank Credit and Economic Cycles. And we will see why, if new investment is financed with real, genuine prior saving rather than with credit expansion, there is no economic crisis. If new investments in the productive stages furthest from consumption are financed with prior saving and not with credit expansion, we observe none of the 6 microeconomic effects which we studied the day before yesterday, and which inevitably reverse expansion and trigger a crisis. We are going to review these effects together, and we will be convinced that they do not appear if everything is financed with real saving. As you recall, the first effect we considered was growth in the prices of the factors of production. Why do these prices rise? Because the new money banks create in the form of deposits is injected into the system as loans given to entrepreneurs, who use that new purchasing power to demand productive factors and draw them to their investment projects. Since those factors are not freed from the sector of consumption, entrepreneurs can attract them only by paying higher prices, and therefore the prices of the factors of production, of labor and raw materials, tend to gradually increase. Well, this first effect does not appear if all investment is financed with real saving. While it is true that entrepreneurs demand productive factors, it is no less true that, as you remember, saving involves restricting immediate consumption. So the sales of the companies near to consumption suffer. They decrease, and with them the prices of consumer goods. The companies devoted to producing these goods become sluggish. They are forced to let go of labor, capital equipment, and other productive factors, which are freed in the market and thus increase in supply. As a result, they can be transferred to the stages furthest from consumption without any rise in price. There is a greater demand, but there is also a greater supply. The two effects balance out, and therefore the price of productive factors does not go up. The second effect, which occurs temporarily and tends to halt the speculative bubble process based on credit expansion, is as follows. Once entrepreneurs pay workers and owners of the other original means of production, capital goods, etc., and the newly created money reaches the pockets of consumers in a second, third or fourth wave, if they use that additional purchasing power to buy consumer goods, then the price of consumer goods tends to climb. This is especially true if, as we saw, the arrival of consumer goods in the market also slows down somewhat due to numerous bottlenecks, which occur when entrepreneurs devote great effort to more capital-intensive industries that will mature in the form of consumer goods in a more distant future. Well, this second effect does not appear either if investment is financed with saving. And what do we mean by saving? We said that saving meant the sacrifice or the discipline of postponing into a more distant future the achievement of our ends, the giving up of immediate consumption. Therefore, if there is saving, there is less consumption. So people demand fewer consumer goods, and there is no force to push up the price of those consumer goods. Quite the opposite. As we have just seen, it remains stable or falls. That is why the second effect we talked about does not occur. And, as a result, the third effect does not occur either. What was the third effect which halted the process of credit expansion? A disparity in profits. It turns out that if there is credit expansion, profits eventually tend to grow in the companies closest to consumption, where prices rise at a faster rate than those of production goods. Well, when the whole process is financed with genuine saving, this disparity in profits does not arise. Actually, it does arise, but in the opposite direction. In other words, saving means less consumption, which pushes down the profits of companies close to consumption and pushes up those of companies further from consumption. A sign tells entrepreneurs they are doing the right thing if they lengthen the productive structure and make it more capital intensive, because they will be able to complete their projects in a sustainable manner, since citizens are willing to make the sacrifice involved in prior, genuine saving. And what about the fourth effect, the Ricardo effect, which also tends to put a stop to the process of credit expansion? Well, when the prices of consumer goods increase, because the new money has reached the pockets of consumers, real wages drop. And this tells entrepreneurs they should hire workers at the margin instead of capital equipment. As a result, there is no longer enough demand for those newly created companies far from consumption, which are devoted to producing capital equipment. If the entire process rests on investment financed with genuine saving, the Ricardo effect operates, but in the opposite direction. Since people are saving, they are consuming less. The price of consumer goods drops, as is happening now. If nominal wages remain unchanged, then real wages rise, and therefore entrepreneurs receive the following microeconomic signal. Labor is more expensive, so you should replace workers at the margin with computers and capital equipment. And this is precisely what the new investment projects furthest from consumption are producing. Therefore, in the case of genuine saving, the Ricardo effect strengthens the signal, which communicates to entrepreneurs that they are doing the right thing by lengthening the productive structure with more stages. It also tells them that they will be able to complete their projects, because productive factors freed from the consumption stage can be used to produce those tractors, computers, machines, etc. And finally, we talked about the fifth effect, which involves the interest rate. In the entire process based on credit expansion, once new money has been injected, interest rates go back up, not just to pre-expansion levels, but to higher levels, because they include a positive component for expected inflation. I did not mention it the other day, but they even include a higher positive component for risk, because after the bubble, the perception of risk is much keener. Consequently, the gross market interest rate skyrockets, and since the present value of a capital good is equal to the value of its expected future flow of rents, discounted by the interest rate, remember we looked at the formula, when the interest rate rises, the present value drops to a fraction of its former amount, and this acts as a definitive sign to entrepreneurs that they should not devote their main efforts to producing capital goods, but rather to stages closer to consumption. In contrast, if the process rests on saving, then, because the supply of present goods in terms of future goods is greater, we are willing to give up the present in exchange for a lower premium in the form of interest. Other things being equal, an increase in saving is always reflected in a lower interest rate, which greatly increases the present value of the future flow of rents of any piece of capital equipment, be it a machine, a car, a tractor, a computer, or a facility, a factory, or an apartment. Since the interest rate is in the denominator of the formula, as interest rates fall, present values rise, which tells entrepreneurs that the way to make money is by producing those capital goods which correspond to the stages furthest from consumption. Therefore, when the process is based on genuine saving, none of the factors that halt artificial credit expansion operate. And that process of establishing a productive structure that is more capital intensive, in that it comes to include more numerous and more complex stages, stages which were not considered profitable before, but are considered to be so now, under the new circumstances, since there are more savings available at lower interest rates. That is the healthiest and most favorable process of sustainable economic development imaginable. Furthermore, once those stages are completed, they will permit consumer goods and services in much greater quantity and quality to reach consumers. And with that, economic development will be strengthened, and it will increase and spread to the advantage of all citizens.